Hi, welcome. Recently I had a question in one of my workshops about what do I do if I've been sitting all day? I was talking about some of the effects of sitting all day. And so the question was, well, what can I do if that's the case? So I thought I would get on here and offer up some tips about what to do if you end up having to sit all day, or really if you stay primarily in one position for most of the day. Of course, my first tip is to try your best to change positions throughout the day. That's going to be super important because whether you're standing for long periods of time or sitting for long periods of time or laying down for long periods of time, some of the effects are really similar. One of those effects being decreased blood flow. And most of our systems and tissues need really sufficient blood flow to work well and to feel well and all of those things. So my first tip is to increase blood flow. And that goes along a little bit with my second tip, but increasing blood flow could be anything from just engaging your muscles all throughout your body to getting your heart rate up just a little bit. That could mean taking a walk around the block, doing a couple of jumping jacks, even just like standing up and doing helicopters. In fact, helicopters are one of my favorite things to do, even in the middle of the day, which is to let your arms be floppy like noodles and then turn from your hips and kind of let your hips turn you fast enough that your arms just flop around. And then while you're doing that, breathe. Knowing that oxygen flows through your blood. Take nice deep breaths and you can really oxygenate your blood here. And not only that, but your breathing brings oxygen to your blood, but it also helps you get rid of the carbon dioxide and other waste products that you don't need, that sort of thing. So, breathing is good. I don't know about you, but if I've been stressed in my day, I often don't breathe very much. Or not as fully as I do when I practice yoga or go for a walk around the block or something. Okay, and then you can kind of let that come to stillness. So just anything that sort of gets things moving and gets your blood pumping. Of course, the other thing is to move in all directions, especially in directions that you aren't in when you're at your desk or wherever you are that is still. And so even just like taking your hips and rotating them, rotating your spine, starting to move your joints in different directions, that's going to be key. So we have blood flow, move in different directions, and re-engage the happy tension. And so what I mean by that is that when we stay in one position for long periods of time, our tissues, like a lot of our connective tissues, go through what's called creep. So you can imagine a gummy worm. This is a trick from Jules Mitchell. She does this with gummy worms, and I just don't have one right now. But if you imagine holding a gummy worm and just putting some tension on it at both ends and just holding it there, what will happen over time, if you keep the same amount of tension on that gummy worm, is it's going to get longer and longer. And it's just going to be little by little, but it gets longer. And then when I let it go, it pops back a little bit, but it stays long. And over time, it shortens back up. So it's not going to just stay long, right? Like your tissues, they aren't going to, like stretch out and then just stay stretched out. They will work their way back. And we can help our body through this process by putting it in different positions, first of all. So that's a big piece of it. And especially if you change positions more throughout your day, you're going to get less of that creep. And so that can be really helpful. But you also have to think about that because, for instance, when do people say their back goes out, goes out? Usually what that is it's muscle spasm. It's guarding. Your brain senses like, whoa, I don't have enough baseline tension in the tissues to feel really comfortable with what we're doing right now. And usually it's not things like, lifting heavy weights. It's like I got up in the morning out of bed and then I went to put my underwear on, and you do this sort of like complex movement and your tissues have creeped some overnight. And so then your brain is like, ooh, don't feel comfortable with this level of baseline tension. Let's guard. And so you get this muscle spasm action that feels like, oh my gosh, my back just went out and you're on the floor and you can't get up, and things like that. And oftentimes those are the kinds of movements where people say, oh, my back went out. It's like little movements, but especially after long periods of not moving. When we first get up out of bed, getting up and going to do things after sitting for long periods of time, stuff like that. Or even like I've been sitting for a long period of time and then I want to like futz with my sock a little or something like that. It's just things that we don't really think about. And our brain is like, whoa, not ready for this. We've got some creep happening here. And so you can kind of think about that and how you want to just like coax your body, give your brain a sense of like happy tension. So for me, that means some engagement, like putting ourselves in positions that oppose a little bit the position we've been in for a long time, and getting some muscle engagement going. And so that's what I want to go through today, is a little practice of some ways that we can do that and some things that I might do if I've been sitting all day, which sometimes I do. One of the things is windmills. Okay. And a lot of things are things like standing and engaging muscles. But we will start off on the ground. If I've been sitting all day, I don't really want to start my practice sitting because I want to start engaging my tissues in different positions. So I'm either going to stand up and start doing things standing, or I'm going to lay down and do things that are lying down. And so we've got blood flow, which means breathing, muscle engagement, or cardiovascular stuff. And we're going to focus on breathing and muscular engagement right now. So we're going to do this sort of yoga-inspired practice. Cultivate happy tension, and then move in all different directions, especially the directions that your joints have not been moving in your static position, if that makes sense. So I'm going to use a couple of props. It isn't the end of the world if you don't have them, but it helps with muscular engagement and positioning. I have a block. This is probably the least important. And then I have a strap, and this could be anything like dog leash, scarf, kind of whatever you've got that you could hold the ends of. Okay, so let's lie on your belly. And I think about this because if I'm sitting, my hips have been flexed like this, and my knees have been flexed like this, and my back has probably been fairly rounded. And so one of the first things I like to do is lay on my stomach, because basically all of those things become opposite. So if I lie on my stomach, another thing that usually doesn't happen when I'm sitting, I'm maybe on my computer or writing or reading or whatever. And so my arms stay down by my sides. My elbows are kind of bent. My hands are probably doing something because I'm probably mousing or typing or something like that. So again, I want to oppose that. I'm going to start by taking my arms overhead. And I'm going to start by doing this like crawling action. I'm actually going to use my fingers here and start to crawl my arms forward. And at first, I'm lifting. I'm not just like cranking my head forward. I'm actually lifting from the base of my skull and then looking forward from there. And that helps me get into my upper back a little bit. So again, not like pinching my head forward, but taking my chin in and then thinking about like taking my throat or my upper palate up and back. And I'm breathing. And so I crawl forward, and this crawling action helps to engage my shoulder muscles a little bit. And then I can even push down with my hands, lift up with my armpits, lift up with my head, and take a breath. And then I can crawl forward a little bit more, and now I might start to look down. And then I push my hands down, grip the floor, lift my armpits, and I just go as far as I can with my shoulders feeling okay. And if I want to put my head all the way down, I can do that too. And then release. And you can take your arms out to the sides. And so now again, I'm going to look straight down at the ground. So I'm not cranking forward and not letting my head hang. I'm going to look down and let my neck muscles engage a little bit. And I'm going to grip the floor with my fingers, lift my armpits up, meaning lift my shoulder blades up toward one another, up toward the ceiling. And I can stay right here. I can also lift my hands up off the ground and let those muscles engage a little more. So this is one of the ways that we can help kind of cultivate this sense of happy tension, where we're engaging some of these muscles and telling our brain like, here's some nice tension for you through the tissues. It makes your brain feel safer. And I'm going to release that and bring my hands back, kind of like as if I were doing a chaturanga in yoga. And for this, I'm actually going to bring my hands back. And you can see for me, I'm taking my hand a little bit back further than my elbow. So I'm not attempting to put the whole heel of my hand on the ground. I'm actually kind of gripping the floor with my finger pads and like creating resistance to bringing the heel of my hand to the ground. And so that's nice for wrists and elbows here. We're going to create a little bit of action for wrists and elbows in case you, like me, do some mousing and keyboarding. And so I'm going to look down and I'm going to do shoulder circles. So I keep this little gripping action of my finger pads into the floor. And then I add shoulder circles. And so now I'm trying to create, think of it as like an active stretch for your wrists and hands and elbows. And a little activation through your shoulder blades, through your back muscles. Breathe. And then release, bring your hands forward and wide. You can even come up to fingertips or to your knuckles and press up like cobra. This could also be on your elbows and you press up like Sphinx pose here. And we're just gonna do a few roll up, roll downs. Roll up, roll down. Go with your breath. Find a range of motion that feels good to you, that feels useful to you. It's okay if you find a little stiffness, a little creakiness. And you might, as you go down, you could lift your legs up off the ground, engaging your hamstrings and your glutes. And then as you go up, you can put the tops of your feet down like a little floppy seesaw. And when you've had enough of that, you can come back, hands and knees, and bring your big toes touching and go slow here. So big toes touching, knees apart. Look forward, again, not by cranking your neck forward, but by lifting the back of your skull up and looking forward. It's just a little bit of a different action. It's going to bring you some more action into your upper back. And then start to sit back, but notice I'm not rounding yet. I'm sitting back by bending at my hips here. And so I'm just like kind of slowly taking my spine in the direction of flexion. Flexion is more like the rounding. And so once I got here, I see, all right, I breathe. How does it feel? How does my back feel? And then I might come up and lift my belly, take the top of my pelvis here toward the ceiling and my tailbone down, and then round. So I'm just slowly finding this rounding. And I breathe, and I'm really focusing my breath into my back body. And then come up through center. Take your left leg out to the side. And so as I bring my leg out to the side, I can think about this as another position that is different than what I was probably doing most of the day, right? We're probably not doing a lot of like opening of the legs. And so this is a really good one to do. And this is another one where you can add some muscle activation by pushing your foot down so that this side of your pelvis lifts up a little bit. But I do that by pushing down with my foot. So remember that. And now take your left hand underneath you. So you're threading the needle and threading away from that left leg. And as I thread, I'm going to push my foot down and get a little lift on that side of my spine. Then I'm going to release that and maybe walk a little further under. Again, I push down with my left foot and release that. And come back through center and switch sides. Take your right leg out to the side. And then try, before you get into the twist, push your foot down and get a lift on the right side of your hip so that you can get that action going. And then start to walk your right arm underneath. As you walk your arm under, you can pause and then push your foot down and get that lift. Intentionally activating muscles here. So important and so helpful. And then you can relax that and come underneath. So just play around with that. You activate muscles because if you activate the muscles, blood has to go there. But also because you activate muscles, the act of your muscles contracting puts tension through your tissues. But happy tension, the kind that makes your brain feel comfortable. And release that and come back to center. Bring your legs back in, and then you can do a little down dog, which is like this. You can kind of walk through it a little bit. This could also be on your knees for a little puppy pose, or just go ahead and like make your way to a forward fold, like so. And I've got my feet really wide here. And again, I'm going for more of a bend at the hips. And I look forward, bring my hands to my elbows to my knees. I call this hovering over the porta potty pose. And this is a great one because now my legs are working some. I'm going to breathe here and say, hello, leg muscles that have been static all day from sitting. And then stand. And release. Okay, so we've started creating some engagement. We've started creating some multi-directional movement. And now we've got a few things that we can do standing up, which can be really nice. So for this first one, and you can, like that sequence lying on the ground is a great sequence kind of on its own, the standing sequence that we're going to do. It's a great sequence on its own. So it's not like you have to spend, huge amounts of time doing this stuff. You can do little bits and pieces of it, just things to kind of help help your tissues out after you've been sitting, help your system increase blood flow, and generally like get the energy flow going through your body again if you've been in one position for a long time. So let's see, if you will, if you have a block, take it. The block is really just there, and you could use a bunch of other things too, like a ball of some kind, or the idea is really just to be able to put this on the wall and then on your side. And so I'm standing as close to it as I can and still kind of be upright and push into it, but it's basically just keeping me the same distance away from the wall. And then I'm going to bring my hand forward and I'm going to push my hand. So I've taken my thumb in and down. This is internally rotating the shoulder. And I'm going to push it into the wall. And I might even like turn my head a little bit or do a little neck stretch while I'm pushing into the wall. And then I'm going to walk my hand up the wall some and push again, different angle. And then I'm going to walk my hand up the wall some more. And you might find that as you get up high, and so now I want to come off this block, so I'm trying not to. And so if you don't have one, you just try and be mindful of if you're pushing yourself away from the wall. And you could take this arm all the way vertical and push, breathe. You could start to walk this arm back. And honestly, you could walk it, depending on the mobility in your shoulder, like you can walk it however far it goes, where you're still able to kind of do a push. Or you can stay more in this half range here and you just go up as far as you can and then work it back down. And you could do that a couple times if you wanted. Let's go to the other side for our purposes right now. And again, your thumb is going in toward the middle and then down. So you're internally rotating your shoulder and gentle push. And you can play with the amount of push that you do. You can add a neck stretch if that feels good to you. Breathe and then crawl that hand up the wall a little bit. Push. And maybe up some more. Push. Do another round or work your way back. And work your way back around. And release. All right. Now take your strap and just let it open up. And you can do some of this. This is similar to the last thing here, but a little different, because instead of pushing and crawling up and over, we're going to hold onto this strap and then gently pull it apart and slowly take your arms up. And so as I take my arms up, I'm trying not to do the gymnastics finishing pose. I'm trying to kind of keep everything straight so that it's my arms and shoulders that are opening, but also I'm getting length through my spine and through my abdomen here. I'm not just dumping. And so you can do a couple of these half circles, and your half circle could end here, right? There's no requirement for how high it goes. Again, we're just trying to do something different than you've been doing all day, move in different directions. I can take this back, you know? This is just totally dependent on what feels useful in that moment to you. Some days you might move more than others. Maybe one more like this. And then I can release that. Okay. Now, you've warmed up, we've kind of like prepared our hips and our spine and everything for a little more range of motion. So now what I'm going to do is stand near the wall. And again, it's not, you could do this near like a counter or the back of a couch too, this particular thing. And then I'm going to give you the option to kneel. So if you want like a little blanket or something underneath you, you can do all of these with your back knee down. Okay, I'm going to do this first one. I've got my right leg forward and my right side to the wall. And so I've actually turned my back heel down. I've turned my foot out, and this is what we call like a warrior one leg, okay, to turn my back heel down. And then I'm taking my arm back behind me, and you can find an angle, whatever angle works for you. I like to go, you know, if my pecs go in this direction, I like to kind of go with that. So I'm going to put my hand here, and I'm going to start to bend my right knee. And so you might feel like, oh wow, I'm limited by my hip, or I'm limited by my calf, or I'm limited by my shoulder. And you just play with all of it. And so then I push my right hand into the wall. And as I push my hand into the wall, I'm going to almost be like turning my chest toward the wall by doing that push. And then I relax that and see what I get. And so maybe 2 or 3 like that. Push into the wall, hold. Breath in, breath out, release. One more like this. Good. Slowly let your arm go. Switch sides. You can absolutely do these lunges without a wall, you know? You just work the lunges, and then I'll show you in a minute how you can use your strap too. So again, push into the wall now with your left hand. So I just turned. Now my left leg is forward, my right leg is down. And as I bend into my front knee, I squeeze the muscles on my right front thigh so that my leg goes straighter. Push my hand into the wall, turn, release, and do a couple more like that. Release. Maybe find your strap here and turn again. So you could do that same leg position, or you could lift your heel and be on your toes, giving your foot and ankle a little bit of a different position to work with. And so now I'm taking my strap behind me. If I were to wrap it around, it would kind of come down just below my chest, like right at the, bottom of my sternum here. That's sort of the positioning that I'm using. And I make my tails even because as I bend into my front knee, I'm gonna lift my belly and stretch up. So I'm trying to keep my strap pretty tight, and I've wrapped it around the fronts of my armpits here. And this way I can pull, like I'm trying to use the strap to lengthen my torso. Release, turn to the other side. I'm coming up on my toes in the back. Bend into my front knee, lift my belly, slide my arms up some, and then when I'm almost straight, use my hands to pull. Release. Now I'm just gonna hold my strap. I'm spinning back to the first side. This time, I'm gonna take my left knee down. You can do whatever leg position you want, you know? You have lots of options here. So now I'm gonna hold my strap with bent elbows, and I'm turning my thumbs away from one another, like the fawns, you know, and holding my strap this way. And so when I get here, again, I'm gonna start to bend into my front knee, and now I'm taking my knee, I'm taking it past my ankle to whatever degree feels okay in my body, which could be none, but I can do this. But as I take my knee forward, I'm also gonna open it out just a little bit. Most hips like that a little bit better. And so you can be right here. You can start to send your hips forward. Whatever you do, also lift think of like this top part of your pelvis where your belly button wraps around, and then take that back. And now you can pull on your strap with bent elbows, squeeze your elbows toward one another, look up, or straighten your elbows, pull on your strap, lift your heart. Release, switch sides. So now I just put my right knee down and bring my left leg out. And again, palms toward my back, thumbs out. Bend into my front knee and let it open a little bit, or just kind of let myself stay more vertical here. Lift your belly. Think about taking your belly and the top of your pelvis, like using your belly to help you move the top of your pelvis back. Squeeze your shoulder blades, your elbows toward one another as you pull on your strap. That's gonna help you. And you can stay right here. Or you can straighten your arms-ish. Make sure you can still pull a little bit, not a ton, a little bit on that strap. Lift your chest. And then release. And if you're thinking at this moment, Tiffany, this is really not as like stretchy and relaxing as I thought it was going to be. Exactly. We've been in the same position all day, there's something to be said for like relaxation, right? You know, if I'm stressed, yes, I want to relax for my nervous system. But if I've been in the same position all day, at the level of the tissues, I want to get my blood moving a little bit. I want to create this sense of happy tension so that my brain doesn't feel like it needs to send me all those like achy signals, like, oh, there's stuff wrong with your tissues. When in reality, it's like, it's just not getting enough blood flow and tension. So even if you just do a few things that start to create that blood flow and tension, a lot of times that can even help you feel less stressed, less tired, things like that. Even if the original inclination is to just collapse into a little bundle of relaxation, right? Okay, a couple more standing options here. This one you can go wide-legged. I'm turning my toes out and then I'm opening my knees out to the side. And I'm actually kind of gripping my thighs. You know, why not grip? Like, give your wrists and hands some love here. I'm doing some gripping and I'm kind of pulling on my thighs. And then I breathe and I'm gonna drop one shoulder in. So I'm actually bending my right elbow as I drop my shoulder in. And then back to center, switch sides. And then back to center, you can do that same thing again, or you can let's say I'll mirror you, bring your left elbow down, your right arm up or overhead. Come back through center, do the other side. Right elbow down, left elbow up or overhead. I said elbow, but arm or elbow. Release that, come back through center. Send your heels out, your toes forward and fold forward. Your knees can bend here. And then look forward and come up. Heel toe your feet in. And then bend your knees some. Eagle pose, cross your right thigh on top of your left. And so you can do this little toe tap and squeeze your legs together. You can hover your top foot and balance a little bit if you're feeling fancy. Your right arm would go under your left, right leg over, right arm under, and give yourself a hug or make Twizzler arms. Squeeze your arms and legs into one another. Lift your belly, the top of your pelvis back. Take a breath. And then release that. Step your feet hip distance apart. Send your hips to the right. Lean to the left. And you can keep this top hand behind your head or stretch it over. Root down into the ground with your legs, especially with your right leg. Come up through center. Bend your knees. Cross your left thigh on top of your right. Squeeze your legs together. Left arm under right. Give yourself a hug or Twizzler your arms. Squeeze arms and legs into one another. Take the top of your pelvis back. Sit low. And then release that, legs hip distance apart. Send your hips to the left, your torso to the right. Root down through your legs. And then breathe. Top arm can go behind your head or stretching overhead. Release. Come up through center. One of the best things you can do if you've been sitting all day or standing all day is squat. And note that your squat could be sitting on something. So you can find a cushion or a block or a stack of things, and it could be here. I would suggest still kind of pushing your feet down into the ground as much as you can, right? You could also be on the ground with your legs in this kind of squatting position. And if you do this, drag your heels towards your butt so you still get a little muscular engagement there. And release. Okay, lie on your belly. We got one more belly thing. Okay, you can use your strap for this because we're going to be doing a foot grab. So I'm going to cross my right forearm in front of me, bend my knee, and grab my left foot or strap it. And I'm just going to pull it in. And then I'm going to turn my chest forward and stretch my knee and my chest away from one another. Release that. Second side. You can also do the standing version of this, you know. Release. Press yourself back. Child's pose again. Big toes together, knees apart. Sit back with a long spine, and then use your belly to lift the top of your pelvis as you round and let your forehead come down. And slowly work your way up. Sit and swing your legs forward. And then with your legs forward here, and you may want to sit up on something, right? If you need to, that's great. Or sit back against a wall. Cross your right shin over your left and bring your legs in. So it's just a cross-seated pose with your right leg in front of your left. And once I get here, I'm gonna lean forward and I'm gonna imagine like sending my hips and my butt backward. And so I might just use my hands to help me lean. I might bring my hands out in front of me. And so just like in child's pose, I'm starting off with this sense of I'm trying to bend at my hips and keep my spine long. So I'm lifting my throat up and back. And I'm kind of pulling the ground towards me like I'm trying to do a back bend. And then I'm going to take the top of my pelvis back using my belly. I'm going to push my hands away from me a little bit and maybe round into this. You don't have to be afraid of flexing your spine, okay, when even if you've been sitting all day, but like let's do it with some intention and with some happy tension. And walk my hands back up, twist to the right. I'm just going to push my knee into my hand and pull my hand into my knee a little bit. Release and switch sides. Same thing, I'm pushing my left knee into my hand into my knee. Release, stretch your legs forward, cross your left shin over your right and bring it in. So I'm rotating my legs open now as I do this flexion. So I can use my hands behind me. I can even like lift my butt up and move my thighs and my rear back some if that helps me. Bend at my hips. I can bring my hands forward. I can pull my hands back to almost do like a little back bend shape here with my mid back and my upper back. And then I can crawl my hands forward, take the top of my pelvis back and push the ground away. Nice and gently. Release, bring that up through center, twist to the left. Gently press your left knee into your hand, pull your hand into your knee. Breathe. Release and switch. Release, stretch your legs forward, scoot forward, and lie back. Take your feet as even wider than your shoulders, feet to the ground, and drop both knees over to the right, like windshield wipers, and stretch from your left hip out through your left knee. Then come back through center and do the other side. And here we're really getting some nice internal rotation at the hip. It's another movement that maybe you don't do a whole lot of, unless you sit with your legs crossed a lot. And come back through center. Lift and lower your hips and cross your right ankle over your left knee. And so when you bring this in, there'll be a difference if you just try and like do it actively. So if you bring your legs in, that might be one thing, but now do the top of the pelvis back again. So take your belly button towards the top of your pelvis, towards the floor. So you're actually using some muscles to help you flex your hip more, bring your legs in more. And then once you've done that, you can hold. You also do not have to bring your legs in at all. You can stay right here. You can do a little rocking. You can hold your knee and draw it in like this. It's totally legitimate. Release, second side. Cross your left ankle over your right leg. Feel free to stay or to just draw your top knee in. If you're going to bring the whole thing in, do it actively at first. Notice if your low back kind of arches off the ground, and try and do the opposite here because we're rounding in. So we're going to help our hip out by taking the top of your pelvis toward the ground as you draw in actively. And then maybe you hold onto your legs. And if this is a pose you do a lot, just notice if that feels different. And release. Bring both feet down to the ground. Lift your hips and lower them back down. And then you can stay right here and just tip your knees in toward one another and rest. It might feel nice to take something, a pillow, a blanket, and put it underneath your chest, and you could rest like with your chest open. Your legs can be in any configuration that you like, right? They could stretch out. You could go feet together, knees apart. You can play with this a little bit. Make sure that wherever you are, you can settle in, like so it's not so provocative to your system that you're really distracted by discomfort here in this position. But feel free to put yourself in a position that does feel like it's opposing where you've been all day. And gently coax your breaths to elongate and to slow down just by moving your breath slower, especially your exhales. And by working on slowing your breath, slowing your exhales, relaxing your muscles. Now we're talking to your autonomic nervous system, that fight or flight, rest, digest part of your nervous system. And we're asking it to come down. Asking it to settle. And you can stay here absolutely as long as you like. Whenever it is that you're ready to move on, move slowly. If you're on your back, make your way to one side and pause. And then find your way back up. Thank you.